Welcome to The Debate. The Golden State Warriors dynasty, well, it isn't just aging, it is facing a critical inflection point, a real crossroads that is really going to define the final chapter of the Stephen Curry era. With that February 5th trade deadline just looming, the organization is reportedly in this internal conflict over some aggressive moves involving key assets like Jonathan Kuminga, veteran targets like Nikola Vucevic, and even the emotionally charged idea of bringing back Klay Thompson.
Right. And that internal conflict, if you look at it objectively, it seems less like a measured strategy and a lot more like organizational panic. I mean, the specific rumors, especially this idea of trading a 22-year-old Kuminga for 35-year-old Vucevic, that to me signifies an organization that's ready to just burn its bridge to the future in a desperate attempt to cling to a past glory that's, fading fast.
And that framing brings us right to our central question today. Considering the Warriors' aging core and their pretty precarious 2023 record, should the organization commit to these aggressive win-now moves? Should they sacrifice future assets like trading Kuminga for a veteran center like Vucevic just to maximize Steph Curry's final seasons? I'm going to argue that yes, they must. It's an imperative to pursue immediate contention, no matter the cost.
And I'm coming at this from a very different way. I believe those proposed win-now moves are, well, they're built on a foundation of nostalgia, they're strategically unsound when you actually analyze the league today, and they really amount to just an abdication of organizational responsibility. You're sacrificing years of a future for a marginal, maybe, upgrade in the present.
Look, the organization's its number one obligation right now is to Stephen Curry. He's 37 years old, the championship window, the chance at a fifth title is closing faster than anyone wants to admit. And to maximize these last few years, the team has an acute, immediate need: high-level floor spacing and a veteran big man who understands a complex offense. Vucevic, he addresses this perfectly. He's a proven two-time All-Star, a really functional stretch big who was averaging over 2.5 threes a game in his prime. And even now, he's shooting a very respectable 38% from deep this season. The Kuminga for Vucevic trade is clean financially. It's almost a one-for-one swap. But more importantly, it provides that high basketball IQ, the skilled passing, and the pick-and-roll spacing that Curry's offense needs to operate at its highest level. The Warriors' long-documented pursuit of Vucevic over multiple deadlines proves this isn't some desperate whim. It's a recognition of a strategic hole.
Okay, but I would push back hard on that premise, because it assumes Vucevic is the missing piece for a championship, which I think is a massive overestimation of his impact at this stage. Trading Jonathan Kuminga, who was one of the few players on that roster with elite athleticism and real two-way potential, trading him for an older, slower, expiring asset it's just basketball malpractice. Kuminga is signed to an extension through 2026-27. He represents the team's designated bridge to the future. Giving up control over a player who hasn't even hit his physical prime is a failure, especially when you look at his recent situation. Those 3 consecutive healthy DNPs, coaches' decisions to just bench him, that suggests a complete breakdown in player development, not a lack of talent. And then adding Vucevic, a player with well-documented defensive limitations, it only makes the Warriors' central flaw worse. They're already too old and too slow to keep pace with the West's elite.
I do see why you emphasize Kuminga's potential and the development failure. And frankly, I agree. The coaching staff has struggled to really harness his raw ability. But let me give you a different perspective on this Kuminga enigma. You frame it as a failure to develop. I frame it as an issue of developmental timing.
Okay.
Kuminga is physically gifted. He's switchable, he can attack closeouts, he has that athleticism the roster desperately lacks. But he is still raw. He's profoundly inconsistent and prone to those high-leverage mental mistakes that, veteran coaches just cannot tolerate in the playoffs. If the goal is maximizing the next 18 months of Steph Curry's career, they cannot afford the immense patience required for Kuminga to grow up. Vucevic offers the non-negotiable certainty and veteran intelligence you need to anchor a win-now roster, and he offers it immediately. Patience is a luxury this dynasty no longer has.
But that whole conversation around Kuminga is kind of disingenuous if we ignore the context, right?
The question is, are they trading him because he fundamentally doesn't fit? Or is it because 5 years of coaching staff instability prevented them from ever figuring out how to develop him? If it's the latter, and those DNPs strongly suggest the problem is managerial, then jettisoning your most valuable youth asset is a monumental failure. You don't solve a coaching deficiency by giving up future control. And furthermore, let's just challenge your premise. Does adding Vucevic actually move the needle enough? Sure, he's averaging almost 16 points and 9 rebounds, but you have to weigh the need for a stretch big against the Western Conference gauntlet. Does a 35-year-old center really move them from a play-in team to a title threat? Or just from the play-in to a first-round exit?
That distinction, while it might seem narrow, is vital. Vucevic's value, it goes beyond just raw stats. It's about systemic efficacy. When he spaces the floor shooting 38%, it forces the opposing center out of the paint. But more crucially, Vucevic is an exceptional high-post facilitator. He forces the defense to commit, which immediately unlocks the Warriors' signature offense. The back cuts for Curry, the baseline drives. Without that high IQ hub, the championship offense just can't anchor itself. Quentin Post, our second-year big, he's shown flashes, sure, but he's raw and he's not ready to handle the conceptual weight of a championship offense. Vucevic provides that immediate, stabilizing presence.
And that assumes experience can overcome youth and athleticism in the modern NBA, a proposition I fundamentally reject in today's Western Conference. We are looking at a brutal landscape. You've got the Thunder, arguably the best team in the league, defined by their athleticism. The Rockets are surging with a suffocating defense. And then the Spurs have Victor Wembanyama. Vucevic is a defensive liability. He always has been. He's not stopping Chet Holmgren in transition. He cannot switch onto perimeter threats like Şengün. This trade provides a short-term offensive fix, yes, but it ensures a massive competitive disadvantage on defense. It sacrifices the ability to get faster, which guarantees their ceiling is well below what it takes to win a title now.
Look, we have to acknowledge that the pursuit of some perfect move, a young, high upside, ready-to-win center, it's a fantasy. We're talking about choices at the margin that might slightly increase the probability of Curry reaching the finals one more time. A highly skilled, high IQ veteran like Vucevic provides a reliability that this inconsistent team craves.
Reliability in first-round mediocrity, perhaps. And speaking of emotional choices, let's pivot to this noise around Klay Thompson. The ESPN report, passed on by journalist Ryan Clark, noted the Mavericks are exploring trading Thompson, who is owed $17 million. And we know Steph Curry has been openly sentimental about a reunion. He said, and I quote, "I wish he was still here." Well, bringing Klay back, a 35-year-old guard averaging a career-low 11 points on career-worst shooting, is a pure nostalgia play. It does not solve their problems. Instead, it turns the roster into what some people have accurately called a retirement tour disguised as a playoff push. Sentiment doesn't win titles.
That's a compelling, if cynical argument. But have you considered the weight of loyalty versus logic in this specific context? I agree the optics are terrible. Thompson got moved to the second unit in Dallas, which is a public demotion. However, Stephen Curry has earned the right to have his voice weighed heavily in these defining decisions. He transformed this franchise. And while we have to be realistic, we should note his three-point shooting did stabilize, hitting a respectable 40% from deep over the last month. He's clearly not completely washed. The front office has to be honest with Curry, but the value of attempting one final morale-boosting rally, leveraging that dynasty chemistry, that is a non-trivial bet. It honors the legacy while taking a calculated risk.
The problem isn't just the risk, it is the cost.